There is a thing that happens in this country when the foundational ideas themselves, the ones we are taught from childhood, are unassailable, the bedrock, come under a very specific kind of attack. It doesn't always sound like an explosion. Sometimes it's the near-silent administrative click of handcuffs closing around the wrists of a journalist in Los Angeles. Sometimes it's the ping of a social media notification from the official account of the White House, turning that arrest into a punchline. And sometimes it's the sound of career public servants, the men and women who have spent lifetimes building their reputations on the meticulous application of fact to law, closing their binders, pushing back their chairs, and walking away from a case because what they are being ordered to do violates not just the law they swore to uphold, but the conscience that law is built upon. What happened last night is a story about Don Lemon. But it is not only a story about Don Lemon, it is a story about a church in St. Paul. It is a story about a president's long memory for slights. It is a story about an attorney general's direct order. And it is, most consequentially, a story about a group of prosecutors in Minnesota and California who looked at the case file, looked at the charges, and decided they wanted no part of it. We have the receipts, and we will show them to you. But to understand why this moment, this arrest, this night isn't just another noisy blip in our chaotic politics, you have to understand the road that led here. You have to understand that the attack on the First Amendment we are witnessing tonight did not begin with an indictment. It began with a vocabulary lesson, a redefinition of terms. Fake news, the enemy of the people. Words designed not to critique, but to dehumanize, to separate, to create a category of person, the journalist, who exists outside the circle of normal, protected American life. Because once you do that, once you successfully create that category, what happens to them next becomes politically and perhaps legally permissible. And so we find ourselves here on a night where federal agents, acting on the direction of the Attorney General of the United States, arrested a prominent journalist on charges so rare and so specifically constructed that the very prosecutors asked to bring them have reportedly refused. This is the escalation. This is the move from word to action. And the question we are left with, the open loop that will hang over everything we discuss tonight, is terrifyingly simple. If they can do this to him with all the lights on and the world watching, who is next? Let's begin with the facts as we know them right now. Last night in Los Angeles, former CNN anchor Don Lemon was taken into federal custody. The charges, according to a statement from the Department of Homeland Security, one count of conspiracy to deprive rights under color of law, and one count of violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, the FACE Act. The arrest warrant was signed by a federal judge. This followed by about a week and a half, a protest at City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota on January 18th. Lemon was there reporting. The church's pastor is also an official with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. During the service, 3 other individuals disrupted the proceedings. They have also been arrested. Now, on its surface, the Justice Department will present this as a straightforward case, a protest at a house of worship, an alleged violation of federal law, an investigation, an arrest. Order, process, law. But in law, as in life, timing is evidence. And the timing here is a klaxon alarm. For the past week, swirling in the ecosystem of the former president, an ecosystem he still entirely dominates, has been a sustained drumbeat call for this specific action. On his Truth Social platform, Donald Trump reposted, amplified, and endorsed calls for the arrest of Don Lemon. This wasn't subtle. It was a direct signal to his followers, and more importantly, to anyone in the federal bureaucracy who views loyalty to him as the paramount principle. The message was clear. This man is a target. And then, last night, it happens. The target is acquired. The arrest is made. And this morning, the official White House response arrives. Not a legal briefing, not a statement from the counsel's office, a social media post. A photograph of Don Lemon inside that church with the caption, "When life gives you lemons, followed by a chain emoji. A chain emoji. Let me say that again, because the surreality of it demands repetition. The official White House, the People's House, commented on the arrest of a journalist by posting a meme with a chain emoji. This is the tone. This is the posture. This tells you everything you need to know about how they view the gravity of jailing a member of the press. It is a joke to them, a flex, a demonstration of power. But here is where the story, the straightforward story they are telling, begins to crack. And it cracks from the inside out. Inside. Because we have learned through reporting with multiple sources across the Department of Justice that this case is not being handled as a normal case, that it has, in fact, sparked what one source described to us as a quiet revolt. We are told that career prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota, the office that would normally handle a case stemming from an event in St. Paul, expressed profound reservations about these charges. Their concern was elemental. They did not see evidence in the facts that met the high legal bar required for these specific statutes. The FACE Act is a serious law with serious intent, designed to protect access to reproductive health care and religious worship. Its trigger is force, threat of force, physical obstruction, or intimidation. The conspiracy charge requires proving an agreement to willfully deprive someone of their constitutional rights. These are not charges you bring lightly. They require a specific proven intent and action. According to our sources, attorneys reviewing the evidence from the church protest, the video, the testimony, the facts on the ground, could not find the force or intimidation necessary for the FACE Act violation, as it applies to Lemon, who was there as a reporter. They saw a protest. They saw a journalist reporting on it. They did not see a federal conspiracy to deprive worshipers of their First Amendment rights. And so we are told several of them declined to participate. They recused themselves or were sidelined from a case they believed lacked legal merit. But the gears of the department were turning. The order had come from the top. Attorney General Pam Bondi this morning confirmed it herself. "At my direction," she wrote. So if the Minnesota prosecutors wouldn't do it, the case would be handled differently. It would be run out of Main Justice in Washington, and the arrest warrant would be executed clear across the country in Los Angeles. But then another hitch, another moment of conscience. We have also learned that when federal prosecutors in the Central District of California were presented with the warrant and asked to assist in its execution and in the initial proceedings, concerns were raised there too. These are professionals with a duty of candor to the court. They cannot ethically stand before a judge and advocate for a detention or present facts they believe are misleading or insufficient. And so, again, we hear of pushback, hesitation, unease. This internal dissent is the tell. This is the secret history of this case, written not in press releases or Truth Social posts, but in the silent, powerful language of professional refusal. When the people whose entire job is to put people in jail look at a case and say, "I can't in good conscience do this," you are not looking at a normal legal proceeding. You are looking at something else entirely. You are looking at a political operation being conducted with the tools of law enforcement. And this brings us to the first major cliffhanger of this story, an open loop that is crucial to understanding the stakes. Who exactly is the lead prosecutor on this case? If the seasoned attorneys in Minnesota and LA have stepped back, who is left? Who is the attorney standing up in court tomorrow or the next day and putting their name, their reputation on the line to argue that Don Lemon's reporting was a criminal conspiracy to violate the First Amendment? We are digging into that right now. The answer will tell us everything about how deep the politicization of this case goes. But to fully grasp the blueprint here, we have to rewind. We have to see this not as an isolated event, but as a pattern of using the process of justice as the punishment, while the outcome of justice is almost an afterthought. Think back. The sandwich thrower prosecuted and swiftly acquitted for a minor incident at the Capitol. The bizarre failed prosecution of former FBI Director James Comey in the Eastern District of Virginia, a case that fell apart under scrutiny. In each instance, the pattern holds: identify a critic or a perceived enemy, level an extreme, novel, or overly broad criminal charge, secure the sensational arrest, the perp walk, the headlines. Let the process grind them down financially, emotionally, reputationally. The victory is in the indictment, not the conviction. Because even if a jury ultimately says not guilty, the target has been bankrupted, smeared, and immobilized for years. This is the playbook. And it is a playbook written specifically to chill the First Amendment. The goal is to make the cost of criticism, of investigation, of reporting so astronomically high that others will simply choose silence. It is a tax on free speech paid in legal fees and anxiety. And who is the architect of this particular maneuver? Attorney General Pam Bondi, a longtime loyalist, a former Florida Attorney General best known for her close personal and political ties to Donald Trump. Her tenure so far has been marked by a distinct shift, a centralization of politically sensitive cases in Washington away from the independent, sometimes inconvenient judgment of career prosecutors in the field. The Don Lemon case is a pristine example of that shift. At my direction, she said. This is not the decentralized, fact-driven DOJ of lore. This is a command from the top. Which forces us to ask another, more unsettling question. The second open loop we will be chasing tonight. What about the other event in Minnesota? The one that happened just days before the church protest. The one where, during a separate demonstration, 2 peaceful protesters were shot and killed by federal agents. Where is the aggressive, top-directed DOJ investigation into that? Where are the conspiracy charges for those who deprived those 2 Americans of their lives, of their 14th Amendment rights to due process? According to Don Lemon's attorney, that investigation is nowhere. The resources, the attention, the direct orders from the Attorney General are instead focused here on a journalist in a church. The message could not be clearer. Some violence will be investigated. Other violence will be overlooked. Some constitutional violations will be prioritized. Others will be perpetrated. It depends entirely on who the victim is and who the perpetrator serves. And this is where the history matters, because what we are seeing is not American, but it is not unheard of. The weaponization of law against political opponents and a free press is the classic telltale symptom of democratic erosion. It is page 1 of the autocrat's playbook. You don't have to shut down every newspaper. You just have to make an example of one prominent journalist. You don't have to arrest every critic. You just have to show that you can and will send the FBI to their door. They are betting on our numbness. They are betting that we have seen so much norm shattering, so much chaos, that this too will just blend into the noise. They are betting that the outrage will be fleeting, that the institutional checks will be slow, and that by the time any court throws this case out, which legal experts across the spectrum tell us is likely, the damage will already be done. The lesson will have been taught. But they are also betting against something else, something in the American system that is slower, but often more durable: the professional conscience, the quiet courage of the person who says, "Not with my name." We saw it tonight in the reporting of prosecutors walking away. We have seen it before in this administration in the mass resignations from immigration courts, from the Pentagon, from various departments. There is a breaking point. The cliffhanger for our nation is this: which force will prove stronger? The relentless top-down pressure to turn law into a weapon of faction, or the dispersed individual courage of the people inside the machine who keep trying to apply the brakes? We're about to find out, because Don Lemon will be arraigned. He will fight this, as his attorney has vowed, vigorously and thoroughly in court. And in that courtroom, the 2 Americas will meet: the America where the president's whims are law, and the America where the law is supposed to be blind. We will be watching that arraignment. We will be tracking down the prosecutor who chooses to stand up for this case. We will be following the paper trail that led from a Truth Social post to a federal detention center. And we will be asking every night who is next on the list. Because in the end, this isn't about Don Lemon. It is about the handcuffs. It is about who they are for and who gets to click them shut. And the most important open loop of all, the one that should keep every single American awake tonight, is the one that asks, if the price of telling the truth is now a federal indictment, what happens to the truth? We'll be right back with more on this developing story, including a look at the specific legal precedents around the FACE Act and an interview with a former federal prosecutor who resigned from this very Justice Department over what they called its ethical collapse. Please stay with us.